If you plan on setting your garden up with an irrigation system and a timer, there are so many different parts out there and so many different companies to choose from. It could be a little bit overwhelming. And the problem is not all irrigation parts are equal. Even though half-inch line may be half-inch line at Lowe's or half-inch line at your local irrigation store, they are not the same. Each company goes by a measurement of the inside diameter and the outside diameter. And so if you change manufacturers and you get different parts, the elbows and the T's and all the things that connect all of the parts together may not be the same. And so buying from all sorts of different stores is not always ideal. And sometimes the stores that sell irrigation kits don't really have the parts that I think work best in a home garden. So in today's video, I'm going to share a list of all the irrigation parts that I use in my garden and the parts that I have found to work best. And so that if you decide to set up irrigation in your own garden, you can download the simple list, which will be in the description below, and it gives you all of the different parts that you can choose from, and they are all the same, or they are all from the same company, so that if you choose to buy them online, you can, or you could take this list to your local irrigation store and buy from all of the same manufacturer to make sure that your parts fit. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to start explaining the different parts so that you can understand which parts to get for your garden. At the very top of the list, I list out the half-inch poly tubing, which is this right here. And this is going to be your main line that runs around the perimeters of your garden through the center of your beds. Say you have two raised beds next to each other, you could possibly do this half-inch line right between them, and then you can connect your stakes and quarter-inch line to this half-inch main line. So this is your half-inch main line. Then you need to have the fittings that go with that same tubing. So not all half-inch line is the same. So depending on where you buy from, if you go off of this list and you get everything through Drip Depot, which is the company that has all of these parts, then all of the parts that I have here on this list are going to match with the half-inch line that I put on this list. If you take this to your local irrigation store, then you just need to make sure that the half-inch line that you're buying is compatible with the parts that you buy. So I give you all of these different fittings. Typically, you're really just going to need elbows and T's. This specific T right here is a different brand, but it still works with the same half-inch line. But if you can see right here, these are called, well, they're called different, there's different brand names, but through Drip Depot, which is the list that I'm recommending, they're called Irrigation Permalock fittings. And they're super nice because all you have to do is spin back this nut or locking device, whatever you want to call it, and then you just easily can push it into your half-inch line. And then all you have to do is lock it down and you're good to go. It's super easy to undo and take the line off. Whereas these old school parts that I used to use, you had to push with all your might to get it on the end, and then all the time I had the parts popping off of the line and it was just a mess. So once I switched over to these locking parts, things got a lot simpler. So these would be your elbow, and an elbow will be, anytime at a corner when you need to turn 90 degrees, you would have your elbow and you would connect your next piece of half-inch line to that elbow. But if you have a T, you would use a T to continue on a line. So right here, you would connect your T, then you would connect half-inch line here, and then on this side is where you could go to another garden bed. So when you're figuring out your own design, you just need to go through this list and figure out how many elbows do you need, how many T's do you need. I also have other things on here like a cross, and I don't have one here to show you, but a cross would go in every direction. So if you have a spot in your garden where you had a garden bed going forward, backwards, to the right, and to the left, you could set up a cross and you could connect all your main line that way. And when you click on the links in this list, it's going to take you to the site and show you examples so that you can better envision what it looks like. Then the next thing on the list is a coupling valve, and that allows you to turn off the water to a specific area. So I have a coupling valve at every raised bed so that if that whole irrigation line is running, I could specifically turn off one bed in case it's not planted, or maybe there's certain days where it doesn't need as much water. That coupling valve still just connects to your main line on each side, and it allows you to turn off that bed. Then we go into the end caps, and an end cap is the first one listed out on this list, and that's the one I would actually recommend. I don't have one here to show you. I have the figure 8 end clamp, and the figure 8 end clamp just goes on your 1/2 inch main line, and then you would kink it over and put it through the other end, and that ends the water. It just kinks it at the end of the line, so the water, you know, is shut off at the end of each line. But the end clamp is going to have a inner or a locking part like this. So you would connect it to the end of your line, and then there's a cap that you could open up to drain your line or keep closed to keep it closed. And those would be most helpful because it makes it really nice at the end of the season when you need to flush out the lines to just open up that cap and drain out the lines, but it's also not very hard to take off this figure 8 clamp either. There's also one on here that I listed that's called an end plug with a finger ring, and that is like the end cap. It's going to connect with an interlocking part, and it's going to have a little ring on the end that allows you to stake it down. And that can actually be really helpful because the main line will sort of move and shift in the sun as it stretches out. So if you have a main line with emitters directly into the main line and you have them at each plant, it's going to kind of shift in the sun, so sometimes it ends up watering away from the plant. That's why stakes are really nice, because a stake, you stake directly next to the plant. So this stake, obviously, the stake will not move if the main line is moving. But there's lots of times, like for example, I have a long row of tomatoes and I just put my emitters directly into the main line. So then if this main line shifts, the emitter is not always next to the plant. So that's why staking down your main line is nice, but it's also nice at the end of your line to hold it into place so that it can't shift too much. So that would be the end plug with the finger ring. Then you're going to need your female hose adapter, and that is what is going to connect to your faucet or your timer. So it just screws right on, and then your 1/2 inch main line will connect directly to that. You'll tighten it down, and now that's your main line that runs now out to your garden. The next thing you have on the list is a washer with a screen, and that would just connect to your faucet or your timer first to catch any sand or anything that's coming through your water to prevent it from going into the main line. So most timers actually come with that on top, so you don't always have to buy one, but it's something to think about depending on the setup that you personally have. The next thing we go into is your 1/4 inch poly tubing, which you can get a 100-foot roll for under $7 on Drip Depot. So I recommend just getting a large roll right off the bat. It's going to give you plenty for your garden project. If you need more than that, obviously you get a larger roll, but 100 foot goes a long way. So that is your tubing that is going to connect to your stakes. So right here I have a stake with the 1/4 inch line, and that is then what connects to my 1/2 inch line tubing. So you need both almost always. You're always going to need 1/2 inch line and 1/4 inch line to pretty much make most gardens work. Then we have 1/4 inch drip line, and there's different drip line with emitters spaced differently. So this one has its drip line, and it has a connecting piece right here which on your list it's called the 1/4 inch barb tubing coupling. So this little piece is listed out on the list, and it is going to connect to your 1/2 inch line. And now there's drippers spaced every 6 inches. They also make drip line with emitters every 9 inches and every 12 inches. I really only like to use drip line on plants that are spaced close together. I prefer to use an adjustable emitter, like this one right here on this stake, at plants that are spaced farther apart, such as tomatoes and peppers and squash, cucumbers, because then I can control how much water comes out. Sometimes certain plants need more or less water, and you're able to adjust it that way. If you use only drip line, you can't adjust it. You can only run the water for a longer period of time, and sometimes that's not needed for everything. So it's really great for plants that are spaced close together, that are all typically going to need the same amount of water, and you can always water a little bit extra. But for most plants, I prefer an adjustable emitter. So that is your drip line. Then your connecting part is these 1/4 inch barb tubing couplings, which is the part that connects to your 1/4 inch line. Then I have rising stakes, and depending on where you buy from, these are all going to kind of vary. On this list, I don't particularly have any of these exactly, but it's going to be essentially something like this, and the stake with a riser on top. So sometimes stakes just come solo like this, and then you have to buy these parts separately. And I believe on here I say there's the rigid riser holding stake, which I believe is similar to this. And it's just going to screw into your stake, and then you are going to screw in your emitter right on top. So when you click on the links, it will show you the exact examples, but it's going to be something similar to this. Some of them come with emitters already on top, some of them don't. So you just have to figure out which types you need for your garden, but those are your rising stakes. Then there's the hole punch and cutters. This one right here is just a simple cutter or a simple hole punch that just pokes a hole right into your main line like that. And so then you can put in you can either connect your stakes with 1/4 inch line, or you can directly put in an emitter right on top if you have a long line of something that you're just using 1/2 inch line for. And now we have the emitters. So I always prefer an adjustable emitter because then you can let more or less water come out for your plants, or if you need to completely shut it off, you can. And they're also a lot easier to clean if things get clogged. So there is a adjustable dripper, which is this one right here, and it kind of comes out like a little waterfall, and it waters right at the base of the plants. And so it's perfect for vegetable plants because you really don't want your vegetable foliage getting wet. It's better to just water at the base of the plants. And so this adjustable dripper is perfect. Then there is a fan sprayer, which is this one right here, and it's perfect for flower beds and herbs where you want to kind of just spray in a larger diameter, and it doesn't quite matter if the foliage gets wet. And then there's 2 types for each. There's barbed and there's threaded. So barbed emitters are going to directly go into your main line. So if you're going to have a long line of, say, tomatoes, and you just want to put your emitters directly in your 1/2 inch main line, you want to use a barbed emitter, and it's just going to poke right into that main line just like that. If you have a rising stake, it is a lot easier to use a threaded emitter because then it can just screw right on. So you don't want to use threaded directly into your 1/2 inch main line, but you can use barbed into a rising stake, but the threaded is much easier to put on. Then as we go down the list, we have your main line holding stakes, which would be something like this, and you just use that to hold your main line in place. Then we have repair. So you're going to need goof plugs. Goof plugs are these right here, and the small end goes into the end of your 1/4 inch line. So say you have this 1/4 inch line running to something and you need to put an end cap on there. The goof plug, the small end of the goof plug, will be the end of that. You also need the goof plugs at the end of your drip line. So if you use drip line, at the end of your drip line, you're going to have to put a goof plug to keep the water from continuing out. The other time goof plugs are used is if you have your 1/2 inch main line and you want to take this emitter out, then you would put the large end of the goof plug directly in that hole, and that's going to patch the hole. Or if you get a random hole, you can use the goof plugs to patch that hole. But you can also buy tubing repair tape, and you can patch small holes that way. Sometimes you just get a tiny little leak, and the repair tape is great for that. Then you have couplings. So a coupling is this part right here. Say you get a really big hole in this 1/2 inch main line, you can just clip it and put on your coupling and then connect new mainline tubing. So couplings are nice to have on hand, at least a few of them. So if you have to repair a line, then you're going to want your goof plugs and some tubing repair tape. Then our very last thing is the timers. And this right here is an orbit timer with 2 zones. I also have a Melnor timer with 4 zones. Depending on how many zones you're going to have running, it's helpful to have more. But if you have a smaller garden, probably this 2 zone timer would be perfect. But if you have a larger garden, the Melnor with 4 zones is really great because it allows you to separate out plants that need more or less water, and you also can separate out things so that your water pressure remains high. So I hope that now you understand all the different parts that you may need for your garden irrigation setup. Be sure to get your list that's in the description below. And if you'd like more help with setting up your garden on irrigation and a timer and all of the planning that goes into it, how to figure out what you need for your exact garden, how to determine the different types of soils and climates so that you can adjust your watering, I have an entire course called Effortless Irrigation, and that will be in the description below as well. So I would love for you to join that course. And if you want to just see a few examples of some irrigation setups here in my garden, I have 5 different examples of irrigation setups. And if you head to this video right here, I go over each of those with you so that you can envision how your garden can look as well. I will see you there.